As promised, I am now in the studio with the new GR Corolla. This particular model is the Circuit Edition. This is going to be the craziest version of the craziest version of the Corolla. Let's take a deeper dive than I was able to yesterday into what you should see in the new GR Corolla coming on sale later this year. This is going to be the ultimate Corolla performance vehicle. 300 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. Let's start out under the hood first. This is an all-new 1.6-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, producing 300 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. Now, why a 3-cylinder engine? It actually makes more sense than you might think. 3-cylinder engines have excellent scavenging characteristics, and we're talking about a turbocharged engine. So as far as turbocharger efficiency goes, 3 cylinders actually has a slight advantage over a 4-cylinder engine, which is why we have things like twin-turbo inline 6s. Because, again, the scavenging efficiency here. So 300 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. It is routed to all 4 wheels via a 6-speed manual transmission and a new all-wheel drive system. The new all-wheel drive system is called GR4. GR4 is a really interesting all-wheel drive system because it's going to send power 50-50 front and rear, or 60% of power up front, 40% of power to the rear, or if you twiddle the knob in the center console, up to 70% of power to this axle back here. But that's not all. It's going to have an optional limited slip differential set. Not 1, but 2. I was really surprised by that. I was surprised that Toyota did not opt for a torque vectoring rear axle, something out of a RAV4, for instance. Instead, they've opted for limited slip differentials. It's a torsion unit front and rear. The likely reason for that is curb weight. This kind of limited slip rear differential is simply lighter than a torque vectoring axle that you might find in some of the competition. And for the GR Corolla, Toyota was definitely obsessed with curb weight. This is only about 200 pounds heavier than the current generation, or I should say last generation Honda Civic Type R, because Honda has actually taken a year off for the new Type R. So this is significantly lighter than other all-wheel drive options in this segment, while producing more power than something like the new Subaru WRX. This is producing power-wise more than we find in a Volkswagen GTI, of course, with all-wheel drive like you'd find in a Volkswagen Golf R. So I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up lighter than the Golf R. Out back, we have a very unique design feature. It's this tri-tip exhaust setup here that was not only to give this a very distinctive look, which it absolutely does with this oval tip in the center and the 2 round tips there, but it was designed to reduce engine back pressure. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to start it, but someone from Toyota sure is. Let's hear how the exhaust sounds. Ooh, pretty throaty. Go ahead and rev it up. Let's see how this goes. Another reason I'm interested in the GR Corolla is, as you can hear, it has a very different sound to the average 4-cylinder engine. Quite logically, this sounds an awful lot like a 6-cylinder engine, especially a twin-turbo 6-cylinder engine, because this is basically half a twin-turbo 6. Some sheet metal is shared with the regular Corolla. The hatch, for instance, looks very similar to the regular Corolla, but we get full LED taillights that definitely gives this more of a distinctive look. Obviously, big GR Corolla badge right there. Now, if I open up this hatch, we find hatchback practicality. You're only going to get the GR drivetrain in the hatch. There's no sedan variant. As you'd expect, full LED headlights. These look pretty similar to the regular Corolla as well. Lots of LED accents and tons of extra cooling up front. In the Circuit Edition, all of the vents that you see here are fully functional. That includes the vents right up here on the hood and the ones that you're going to see turning right around here just after the front tires. Now, these are Pilot Sport 4 tires, standard in the GR Corolla. Massive brakes, but interestingly enough, these are not brand-named sport performance brakes. So these are likely going to be a lot less expensive in order to repair, replace, etc. This also appears to have a floating hat design, something that I honestly did not expect on the GR Corolla. So 4 piston brakes up front, 2 piston brakes out back, and ventilated rotors. For 1 year only, you'll be able to get the Circuit Edition model, which is the one that I'm taking a look at here. In addition to those vents, we get this very unique carbon fiber roof. This is something I really was not expecting from Toyota on a GR Corolla. This is the kind of feature you find on a BMW M product. What's really unique about this is it's not stranded carbon fiber. It's actually sort of more like a carbon fiber OSB, I guess you could say. It really gives it a very unique texture here. This sort of reminds me of a Formica countertop, but you can definitely hear that this is a lightweight material. It's going to lower the center of gravity. It's also going to reduce curb weight. In addition to that, we have aluminum front doors and an aluminum hood. As you'd expect with that carbon fiber roof, no sunroof there, but Brian's got plenty of headroom in the back thanks to that hatchback design. We do have an adjustable headrest. The seat looks like a sports seat that wouldn't offer that feature, but it does. GR logo right there. Adjustable shoulder belts, lots of aggressive bolstering. You can see this has the faux suede sort of like thing going on right there in the center of the seat back and the seat bottom cushion. This model does not have ventilated seats, but they are heated. The doors and the dashboard, they're largely the same as the regular Civic, with one big exception here in the center console. That is Toyota's latest internet-connected navigation system. If you want to know more about this, it is basically the same system that we find in the new Tundra. Same dual-zone automatic climate controls we find in the regular Corolla, Qi wireless charging mat down there, heated seats, drive mode selector. I noticed that one of their prototypes had an EV mode button here. That's actually the IMT button. This is a very early production prototype, so that might or might not be the final button design. That turns on the rev matching feature, basically. This is what the top of the shifter looks like. It's an attractive leather-wrapped shifter knob with an aluminum insert. It really gives it a premium feel. Then behind that, we have the drive mode selector. Or what looks like a drive mode selector, I should say, because this is actually the all-wheel drive selector, directing more or less power to the front or rear axles. Behind that, we have two cup holders, handbrake right there, and your pretty typical center console. The big addition to this interior has to be this large 12.3-inch LCD instrument cluster on the driver's side. This is unique to the GR Corolla. I don't expect this to spread across the different Corolla trims. You can see there's tons of information in this display. It's much more configurable than I had expected. Based on what we already see, however, we know that there are two different meter looks. You can see we have one with a horizontal tachometer up there, one with the round tachometer, and transitions appear to be pretty smooth. Again, this is going to be a little bit more polished by the time we get the final production version. Now, because this is still an early prototype, not everything in there seems to work at the moment, but we do have a round steering wheel, GR logo down there at the bottom, very prominent. This is a different steering wheel design than we find in the regular Corolla, which is why there's still some unfinished plastics. This airbag cover is not the final texture. Controls for that massive LCD cluster over there on that side, and the controls for the adaptive cruise control system over here on this side, because this is going to get Toyota's latest safety sense system. Although obviously I've spent very little time in these seats, I have to say I'm impressed by the driver's seat so far. It looks like it's got a lot of support, pretty aggressive bolstering there on the seat back and on the seat bottom cushion, but still definitely okay for my 6-foot frame. This is not a power seat, of course, for light weighting, but it does have height adjustability. You can scoot it forward and backward, and of course you can recline the seat back. Back on the outside, there are a few dimensions that Toyota has not shared about the GR Corolla just yet, like for instance track width. It's definitely going to be wider than the regular Corolla, and you'll notice these fender flares here. They have a new bumper in the rear, so this section is unique to the GR Corolla. This section, you can see that the body panels and the door are actually common with the regular Corolla, but we have these tacked on fender flares right here, very much like we find in the Civic Type R. Now up front, things are a little bit different, where we find unique metal quarter panels here. Again, functional vent right there. That gives this a cleaner look than we find in some versions of the competition, where front and rear we have added on composite fender flares. You can see the front bumper, that's also unique to the GR Corolla. At the moment, that's all we know about the upcoming 2023 GR Corolla. Expect to see this in showrooms sometime later in calendar year 2022. With the Circuit Edition being available in calendar year 2023. Now, unfortunately, at this point in time, Toyota has not said how much the GR Corolla is going to cost, but you can expect this to be probably somewhere between a Volkswagen GTI and the Volkswagen Golf R in terms of its price tag. I would not be surprised, however, if this ended up being less expensive than the upcoming Honda Civic Type R. When I asked that question, all Toyota did was say we couldn't talk about future product, and occasionally they would wink a little bit. So I totally expect this to be less expensive than that direct competitor from Honda. And that's what's really interesting about the Corolla, really, for me at least, is that this is finally a direct competitor to that high-performance Honda Civic. Toyota honestly has never competed directly with that model in the United States. And now in the US they have this, and worldwide, of course, they have the GR Yaris if you want something outside the United States that is a little bit smaller and just about as sporty. It shares a lot of the componentry with the GR Corolla. And that led a lot of folks to assume that this GR Corolla was going to be a little bit milquetoast, to be perfectly honest. A lot of folks thought that the GR Corolla would end up only with the engine tune that we find in that GR Yaris. And instead, Toyota decided to dial things all the way up to 11, 300 horsepower out of a very similar engine to the one that we find in the GR Yaris. Let me know what you think about all that down there in the comments section below, and what would you be shopping for if you were looking for a new performance hot hatch in America? This is likely going to be one of the least expensive vehicles to own long term. So if you're looking for something that is absolutely fun to drive, put this on your shopping list. And if you're looking for that fun to drive vehicle to not cost you an arm and a leg over 5 or 6 years, I would say you should definitely put this on your shopping list as well. As always, be sure and stay tuned, because hopefully I will be driving one of these very, very soon. There's likely going to be a drive event by the end of calendar year 2022. So stay tuned for that video. That's when I will likely know pricing, fuel economy, all that kind of information. In the meantime, be sure and hit that subscribe button so you can be updated on all of my latest videos, including that full review, just as soon as I can get my hands on it. I'll see all of you later.